Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. This is the Senior Cycle Geography Options presentation, and what I'm going to do now is just run you through what Senior Cycle Geography is all about, what you'll be expected to do if you choose this subject, what the Leaving Cert exam will entail, and hopefully then by the end of it you'll be better informed when making your subject option choices in the next short while. You already have a foundation in this subject, having done it for junior cert, and you've covered several of the physical geography topics that will appear again on the senior cycle course, so that's a good head start. But you need to bear in mind that senior cycle geography takes this subject to a whole level, where a far deeper knowledge and understanding of the key geographical concepts is required if you are to do well and be successful in this subject. So that's important to remember as we go through this. Let's consider for a moment why you might choose geography in the first place. Well, from a geographer's point of view, we see geography all around us in everything that we do, whether that's settlement patterns or traffic management or the weather and climate, maybe the landscape that we use, the economic activities that we engage in. I could go on because there's a link to geography everywhere. And that makes it interesting and allows us to draw on real life examples and case studies. It's a very practical subject and it's relevant to everyday life. Now, requirements. If you decide to take on this subject, what will be required of you? Well, in the first case, we'd be looking for a C or higher at junior cycle, and that's working off the old junior cert system. But that's not essential, but it is something that you need to keep in mind, okay? An interest in the subject, I would say, is extremely important because it's always going to be easier for you to work hard at a subject and enjoy a subject if you have an interest in it. It's not a chore then, and it's not a challenge for you going into the class 3 times a week if you have an interest in it. It makes it easier in the long run. A good work ethic is very, very important, and that means that you're willing to work and you know that hard work will bring good results, hopefully, at the end of your 2-year cycle. That's going to be especially important when we do our project or our geographical investigation because you have to be able to work on your own for some of that. So keep those things in mind. If we look at the course then in a little bit more detail, it's available at higher and ordinary level. Now, we'd presume that if you did higher level for your junior cert, that you would do higher level for your leaving cert, and likewise with ordinary level. That's not always the case, but it is the most usual. The course then is broken down into a number of different sections. So section 1 is the core section, which means that everybody does it, and that's physical, regional, and the project or the GI. Then we have an elective section, and in our case, in our school, we usually do the economic section here. Other schools may well indeed do the human elective. And then we have the option section, which is for higher level only. Ordinary level students won't be doing that one. There's 4 given, and then you must study one. And in our case, we usually choose the geoecology option. All right, if we go into a little bit more detail then on each of those, the physical section would be most familiar to you because, like I said earlier, you would have done some of these topics in junior cycle geography. Things like plate tectonics, rivers, karst, mass movement, etc. They'll all sound familiar to you there. Regional geography then mightn't be as familiar. In this, we talk about different regions around the world and the complexity of those regions. We look at Irish regions with the west of Ireland and the Greater Dublin area. We look at European regions with the Mezzogiorno in Italy and the Paris Basin in France. And we study a subcontinental region of India. Okay, the economic geography section then covers topics like multinational companies. It also looks at renewable and non-renewable, global warming, etc. And a big part of it is the European Union. Geoecology, as I've already mentioned, is for higher level only, and that's an in-depth study of soils and biomes around the world. As we look at the exam paper then, because it's important to know what you'll be facing into at the end of your 2-year cycle. The geography exam is 2 hours and 50 minutes in duration, and in that time you will answer a set of short questions, which is section A, and you will answer a set of long questions, which is section B. Now, those long questions are broken down into A, B, and C parts. And you'll see here that the A part is usually skills based. So maybe something like an area photograph, an OS map, a graph, a chart of some description. And then the part B and the part C are more essay style answers. What you need to do, you'll be answering a full question on the physical, the regional, and the economic geography sections. You'll be given a choice of 3 questions and you must answer one. So there's a good level of choice involved here. For higher level students, then you'll also answer one full question on geoecology. Again, you get 3 and you do 1. So again, good choice. This is very important for us to keep in mind when making an option choice here. You have a total of 7 essays or 6 for ordinary level to write on the day of the exam, remembering that you have 2 hours and 50 minutes. And in that time, you'll be answering your short questions plus these 6 or 7 essays. So it is going to be tight on time. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The project then, or the geographical investigation, the GI we call it, it's worth 20% of your overall grade. It's due up around the Easter holidays of your 6th year. 6 topics are given and you do 1. Now that's decided at a school level within our geography department. Everybody in the class does the same one. It usually involves a field trip to a river where we do our experiments and our tasks on the day, and then we take that data back to school and write up our report in class afterwards. Okay? So let's talk for a moment then about the pros and cons here, so that you might be able to make a good informed choice as you go forward. Remembering, of course, that geography is a life skill or a life subject, and you're learning about the world that you live in. So you're widening your knowledge of the world. It's relevant to everyday life. You've 20% done before your June exam, so it's going to take the pressure off a little bit. There's a new course since 2006, although that seems a long time ago now. So we've plenty of past papers to draw on and to study from. And drawing and sketching is part of the skills section of your paper. Okay, it's not just all written work. The cons, then, we must look at those as well, because there's always both sides of the argument. It is a very long course and we will be to the pin of our collar to get it done. You need to be able to keep good notes. Are you a good, tidy, organised worker? Are you able to work on your own? Are you able to take your own initiative on it? It says here you need to be good at English, and that's important because, as I said earlier, you have 6 or 7 essays to write up on the day, and each of those essays is going to be roughly about a refill page or a page and a half. Okay, so it's very important that you have a good command of the English language, and you're writing your essays in English, and you need to apply that same practice when you're writing up your geography essays as well. The exam duration, I've spoke about that a couple of times now. It is very tight on time. One of those essays we're talking about, for example, might be on types of rocks, and you're going to have to write that up in about 12 to 15 minutes. So it is quite tight on time. Now, as a geography teacher, of course, I'll say that the pros outweigh the cons every time, but that's a decision that you have to make for yourself. Okay? We'll take a brief look at some of the sample questions of some of the past papers so that you have an idea of what you might be facing into at the end of the 2 years if you choose this subject. Okay, so this is a question from the physical geography section and it's on rocks. Explain the formation of igneous rocks with reference to Irish examples. So, you could all give me a definition of what igneous rocks are. You could name a type of igneous rock and say where in Ireland it would be found. Okay, you know that from your junior cycle geography. The European Union, this is of the economic geography section, and it talks about how enlargement of the EU impacts on member states, such as Ireland, for example. And then conflict of interest, again taken off the economic section, and it's talking here about economic interests and environmental interests. So how economy and environment can be in conflict with each other when it comes to developing natural resources. So just to give you an idea or an overview of some of the types of questions that you might be facing. All right. The project, I've mentioned that a little bit earlier on as well. So your project, as I said, is worth 20%. It's handed up around Easter of sixth year. These were the topics that were given to students in 2019. So you'll see 6 of them here. And number 1 on the list is the one we would have done, because it is the impact of geomorphical processes on shaping a fluvial environment, and fluvial there meaning the river study. So the other 5 didn't apply to us because we were doing number 1 here. Those are quite similar every year. They don't change a whole lot. The wording might be a little different, but generally speaking, there is one there on the river study every year. Okay? So after all my talking now, it's over to you, and it's time for you to consider your options and decide, is geography for you? Maybe it's a subject that you have an interest in. Maybe it's a subject that you've done well in your junior cycle course. So I leave that decision with you, but rest assured, if you do choose geography and you end up sitting in front of me next year, you'll be very, very welcome, and the very best of luck to you now as you go forward and choose your options for senior cycle. Slán.